From the creators of Off the Record, one of the most exclusive, invite-only events for revenue leaders, GetAccept is now bringing these conversations and insights on the record. This is the podcast where revenue leaders share their biggest challenges and how they overcame them. And here's your host, Morgan Ingram.
Have you ever had a problem that you haven't been able to solve? You do journal entries, you bang your head against the wall, and you have no idea where to go? Well, that's exactly what you're going to learn on how to overcome that in this today's episode with Sam Jacobs. And there's a lot of things that I learned from him that was super insightful. How to reflect when things aren't going the way that you wanted to. What are ways that you can take advantage of the obstacles that you have to become and evolve into a better person, and how even if you can't solve the problem, how it can help you in the future to where you can solve that problem again. So if you're a sales leader where you're facing a ton of obstacles and you really don't know what to do, this is an inspired conversation with Sam Jacobs on how he was super transparent and real with me on how he handled the situation he was in and how it helped him grow as a sales leader and a founder moving forward. So you all will join this episode, I promise. Okay, as you all know, on this podcast, we always start with the fun question that the guest isn't prepared for. So, Sam, question for you is, we just already talked about this. You're kind of already prepped. You recently just moved to Barcelona, and we were talking about a lot of different things. So, my question to you is, what is or actually kind of a two-part question. What is the most favorite thing that you've done in Barcelona so far, and what are you looking forward to the most doing in Barcelona that you have not done yet?
All right. Listen, every day is one of my favorite things because I'm with somebody that I care about that cares about me, and we got our 2 dogs and a cat here, and so home-cooked meals and just chilling out doing work, that's fun. But me and Vincent Young, and Vincent is the Chief Product Officer at Dealfront, which is it's like the Zoom Info of Europe, or at least it's one of the Zoom Infos of Europe. I guess Cognizant also presents themselves like that. He and I went for a run up in the mountains above Barcelona, and we went for a nice 7-mile. And there's a trail in the park that overlooks the entire city, and you run straight up. Depending on where you start, it's either straight up for 2 miles or straight up for a mile. That's horrible. But then once you get to the top and you're on this beautiful trail, and it reminds me actually of LA. I don't know if anybody that's listening has spent time around Griffith Park or Topanga Canyon, but there's these hikes that you go on in LA, and they're in the middle of the city, and then you look out and you can see the entire city and you can see the water, and that's what it felt like. It felt like I was in the Hollywood Hills of Spain.
Awesome.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Yeah, go ahead.
And then in terms of what I'm excited to do, we're in the winter, and I'm excited to check out the Pyrenees. I'm excited to check out Andorra. I'm excited to maybe get an Airbnb on the Costa Brava, so on the way up north towards Nice and Cannes and all that, and do it for a lot cheaper than the Hamptons in the U.S. or Amelia Island in in Georgia. And just, continue to explore the Spanish countryside. But I'm having a great time so far. Love
it. And I feel like Sam's content's going to switch up. You're going to become the Spaniard adventure. The content's going to change. Like, no more anything about go to market. It's just like, guys, I'm actually just out here just hiking.
Oh, no way. I mean, I got so much time to think now, Morgan, because, my mornings are largely free because the U.S. wakes up around 2 p.m., 1 p.m. this time. So you're up early. But so I've been thinking more about go-to-market than I ever have, and I'm really excited. Someone asked me, like, are you handing off Pavilion? I'm like, no way. I'm more engaged and involved in Pavilion than I've ever been. And we've got a lot of big plans for 2025. So yeah, I feel dialed in right now, I have to say.
Yeah, no, I love that for you. I love the energy, and there's a lot of awesome stuff to have in 2025, and I'm excited to see what y'all do. And because of what you've built at Pavilion along the way, there definitely has been some probably obstacles or things you've learned along the way, which is what this podcast is about, is like tapping into sales leaders and real challenges that they've experienced. So for you, like in your career when you were a sales leader, what was like a huge challenge that you faced, and then what was going through your head when that happened?
Sure. One of the biggest, it's this mismatch expectation challenge. So I left a company called Axial and I went to work at Livestream. Livestream was later acquired by Vimeo, which was part of IAC at the time, and then went public. Vimeo is now a standalone company.
Mm.
And I was recruited to be basically the head of B2B, for Livestream. Livestream's also like a B2C or a B2 prosumer platform. And when you opened up Salesforce and you look in the CRM for Livestream, you saw hundreds, if not thousands, of leads every single month. And you saw a sales team that was it was a small number of people answering the phone, so only answering the phone, doing no outbound, and making and really like converting deals that would have closed anyway, but then taking commission on them, but candidly also taking low commission. So from the outside perspective, and meanwhile, incredible logos. Davos was a Livestream customer, and Nasdaq, and a bunch of like Fortune 50 companies, big enterprise logos. And so me not knowing anything about really the industry, but also particularly about like the history of Livestream as a company, on the outside it looked like this amazing opportunity. It looked like basically they were getting all these leads, they had all this pipeline, and they had a small number of fairly unqualified account execs converting it. And if they just put in some basic process, and the B2B business it's like a $23 million business, at the time, so reasonably big, and the perspective from the outside was like, oh, this is going to be easy, and I'm going to come in and maybe I'll do some SDRs, maybe, I'll put a little bit of qualification and, lead qualification in there, and we'll just call all these enterprise logos, and, some of them signed up for the cheaper plan, but we'll sell them the bigger plan. And that's not what happened. And the challenge was that, I did sort of what I tell people exactly not to do. I mean, this is one of the reasons I tell people not to do it, because I hired all of these salespeople not really understanding the nature of the demand. And so what was the nature of, and so I was there a year and a half, and, maybe we grew like 15, 20% in the B2B business, but it wasn't a success. It wasn't like some big home run, and it was really, really hard, and I could not figure out how to move that business. And so why was that? What did I learn from that experience? I mean, so first of all, like during the experience, it was incredibly frustrating because it was a product-led company, and it's still largely, although their sales team is much more professional, thank God. It's, probably because somebody else is running it instead of me. But it's like a product-led business, super focused on product. The founders, typical, almost, I don't know about typical, but classic technical,
They want like no sales motion.
Disdainful of sales. Sales is stupid. Salespeople are annoying, and so I came in with a new CEO who was later fired, and so it's not even just that you're trying to move the business forward; it's that you feel hostility from the rest of the organization. We all worked in this big warehouse, and it's like one big floor, and I put in Hoopla. I don't know if you remember that, Morgan, but these it's gamification. It's like Ambition. So it's like sounds would go off when you closed a deal, and we tried to put in a bunch of rituals, and we had closing week, and we really tried to like drive the business forward as aggressively as we could. And it was just so freaking hard, and meanwhile, like the support team hated us and hated me, or just didn't like me, thought that I was like coming in and trying to change everything, and I was trying to change things because I was trying to build like a sales culture, and trying to get people excited about closing deals and trying to make it that it wasn't a bad word, and tried to build up, a little bit of a marketing organization. The other challenge was that I'd never run marketing, but I negotiated to run marketing. So all of a sudden I was responsible for building great marketing, but I didn't know how to do that. And it was really, really hard. And it was this sense of, and I left Axial somewhat ignominiously. So meaning like not in I was fired and kind of shown the door. And so this felt like, deja vu, as Yogi Bear would say, deja vu all over again. And a lot of sleepless nights. I have journal entries from like when I would wake up at 3 or 4 in the morning thinking about like, what can I do? How do I move this thing forward? And it really wasn't easy. And so that's when I think of, there's been other challenges, and, Axial was its own challenge because I was selling a product without true product market fit, a company that should exist but probably not a venture scale company. So that was a challenge. The Muse was a challenge. I mean, everything's been a challenge because I was typically brought in when things weren't going so great. But that challenge at Livestream was a big one.
And there's a couple things I want to unpack there that you mentioned, and probably helpful for sales leaders listening in. I want to talk about the relationships internally, because to a degree, right, even if you are looking to do the right thing, there are other people that could, because of the strain of relationships, make it difficult to do what you were trying to do. So when you were coming in and you felt that tension, what is the best way to approach that? Is it directly to address the tension, be like, hey, let's ignore it and let's do our thing? How do you navigate that, and what would you suggest for other people to navigate that?
Well, the first thing I would say is, like, you really have to understand, and this is, entering a situation. Sometimes you inherit a situation and there's nothing you can do about it. But let's say you're entering a situation, you're doing due diligence on the opportunity. You need executive buy-in. If you don't have it, and what do I mean by, you need the full-throated support of the CEO. And I did not have that. The CEO, who I like and is a friend of mine, but his background was COO of Squarespace when it was first becoming a big thing. And so he also, I think, was like head of business development at Etsy. So very smart guy, very talented guy, but not a sales person, not a high regard for sales. So honestly, it was just a weird situation going in, and I almost didn't take the job, and he's not like the best written communicator. So my point is, but I felt from him a lot of pressure around delivering results, as you always do in a sales leadership capacity. And so again, the situation, and he's not the founder, so that made it even weirder, right? And the founders didn't quit; they were still there, made it even weirder. So we're all on this floor, and the co-founders are there. They've all taken on SVP roles. That is also my title. And then the CEO is there as well. And none of them truly believe in sales, but they all want to sell the company. They all want to get out of the company because they've been doing it 10 years. It was a 10-year-old company, and that's part of the lesson that we can talk about. But the point is, like, so what do you do? So the first thing is you need to confirm like your style and your what your plan is with the C as much as you can, because sometimes they nod and they say, yeah, we want that, I want that, I want a sales culture, and then you come in and you do it and they're like, oh, I don't want that. And so that's thing number one. And then, everything about making change is about communication and buy-in, and it's definitely not ignore it. It's definitely not that. It is, going and having some degree of flexibility. And that's why due diligence is so important, because, I can tell you, Laura was the head of support, so I should have gone to Laura. I spent a lot of time in one-on-ones with Laura, though, honestly, like saying, hey, this is what we're going to do, and this is why we need this kind of environment. This is why we need this kind of energy. But if you don't have the support of senior management, if you don't have the support of CEO, you just get these questions like, why are they celebrating? Aren't they just doing their job? We don't high five every time we do our job. And it's this, and so you just feel,
Because they don't understand it.
Yeah, and they're just staring at you the whole time, annoyed, and you feel like you're annoying them.
Yeah, and it's like I'm just trying to.
Yeah, I'm just trying to do my thing. This is how I know how to do my thing. And then you can be like, and it would be easy for me to say like, well, just go talk to them and tell them, get their feedback. You're like, okay, but I don't really want their feedback on this particular part, because I do know that you need energy and you need enthusiasm and you need momentum on the sales floor, and that's often why you have the sales team on a different floor. And So what is the answer to all of this? The answer to all of this is like pre-qualify. It's like every opportunity, right? Pre-qualify as much as possible, have as much deep conversation as possible, make sure everybody's on the same page. And by the way, if you're like a B2B sales leader going into a B2C product-led company, maybe get the sales team on like a different floor so that you don't have to bother everybody else.
That's funny. I every training that I've been to, the sales team is always on either a completely different floor than customer success, support, and IT. They're like on the opposite sides
because they hate us.
And it has to be that way, to be fair, because like it's just not going to work if they're biased.
I mean, honestly, I had an foghorn, or going off, and I triggered it when a new opportunity was created, and that was too much. It was going off everywhere, and I'm like, they're like, you can die, or you can and turn that and keep going, do what you're doing, and I will kill you. Or you can turn that fucking thing off and, and you can live.
Oh my gosh. Sam with the air horn is absolutely like, why do we hire this guy?
It wasn't even a closed won deal. It was just a new op. Anyway,
that thing must have been going crazy.
Yeah, I know. I was trying, honestly, that job was, I was trying... this guy Sal Romana, who I love, he's a great guy, and he would say, "Chef," he would call me Chef Sam, and he'd be like, "Hey Chef, what you cooking up back there?" Because I was always trying some campaign, something. I was like, "What can I do to move this stubborn mule that is this business forward and up this damn hill?" Hey Chef, what you cooking up back there, Chef?
So actually, I love that, because you need to do a post on Chef Sam. I think that could actually go crazy. So that's a completely different conversation. But you just mentioned that you were always cooking something up. You were doing journal entries. You were trying to figure it out. So were you able to figure it out there, or at some point were you able to figure out, like looking back in retrospect, like, oh, I should have done that? Like, what was the conclusion to just these nights? This like, oh my gosh, what am I supposed to do here?
I hate to give you this answer, Morgan. My conclusion was no, I was not able to figure it out, and that's because it's for the largely for the following reason. In the time frame, they weren't leads. They weren't leads. It wasn't truly a subscription business for a lot of customers. I talk about this a lot online, which is that you can call anything you want ARR if you want to, but everything is not. If you and me don't agree that we're in an ongoing relationship and I sell you a 12-month deal with an auto renew, I might call that ARR, but that's not what it is to you. So what do I mean by that? Livestream sold monthly plans, and people that would use their pro plan to like live stream something and have an embed, like there was all these gates that used to, I mean, there probably still are, Vimeo still has them. In terms of not just video hosting, but like where you can embed the video and what you can do with it, and people would sign up for a month because they needed it for one event, and then they'd cancel. And also, Livestream had like this free player, and there was a little logo on the bottom, and so you'd click it to like learn more about Livestream, which was mainly viewers of Livestream. So they weren't leads, and Salesforce was populated with tons of random Gmail addresses. And so first of all, like there was a couple, and by the way, the company was 10 years old, right? So and the name of the company was Livestream, which of course is a good thing. But the fundamental thesis of Livestream was that everybody would be live streaming everything. And it's not true. Even today, people aren't really live streaming things that much. No. Not really. We're not live streaming this podcast. Everything on LinkedIn isn't. Most of it's filmed, recorded content that's later edited because you want to like add stuff. You want to add schmutz to it. So the point is, the market knew about the company. It wasn't a one-year-old company. If it was a one-year-old company and all these people were clicking on the little thing at the bottom, and there was this huge movement to live stream everything, because also, by the way, live streaming is actually quite hard because you need bandwidth, and many places do not have bandwidth. If you worry about like how many times Zoom buffers, you need 100 up, 100 down for most good high-quality HD live streams, and most places do not have that. They don't. Which is why most places don't live. It's why like you would assume at this point that like every conference we go to, including Pavilion conferences, that they would be live streamed, and they're not. And they're not because it's expensive and because the AV that you need, like the bandwidth that you need and the fiber that you need, is often not available in the location.
100%. Yeah.
So anyway, all of that is to say that like there was gravity to that business that I was not smart enough to figure out. That like the people that needed to live stream knew that live stream existed. They had decided on whether or not they were going to use live stream, and they had moved on from there. And there were other kind of B2B use cases like corporate communications, meaning like live streaming town halls.
Yeah.
But there was competitors there, and you needed to orient the product architecture towards enterprise in a way that the founders of Livestream understandably did not want to do, because they viewed it as a B2C platform. And so my answer to that dilemma was really about understanding the business and doing due diligence and just understanding what you were getting into and having the right perspective. And frankly, I don't know. One of the other conclusions is maybe I'm not that great a CRO, but mainly it was like, hey, those weren't leads. The company's 10 years old. It wasn't like there's this massive upside and I was going to be this genius that walked in and flipped everything up. There's gravity in physics. There's like a latent inertia that happens to companies that is really hard to move beyond if you don't have some new innovation. And I didn't really have a new innovation. And I also didn't understand the live streaming industry that much. So maybe the lesson's just one of humility and showing a little bit more respect to, people that have come before me.
Yeah, I think there's tons of lessons there, and you kind of were going into it because I'd like to hear like from your perspective, from your own career, how it's helped you evolve. And a couple things for people listening in that you can take from what Sam's saying is that before you go into the company, definitely do due diligence to figure out like, okay, like what is actually happening in this business? What type of product am I stepping into? Do I believe it actually has the long term of those things, right? Questions you can always ask. I think we've always been there. And then I think another thing that you said is important is like truly studying the industry. I always tell sellers, it doesn't really matter, content creators, marketers, like you should be spending more time studying what your buyers are consuming more than anything, because you want to be able to understand the language of like what is actually happening, and then seeing can that actually correlate into your conversations and things of that nature. So all those things are important, as you said. And as we get towards the end of this and you've explained, hey, there's the challenge, here's some things you have overcome, here's some things that people can learn from your experience, for you alone, like as you think about this now, what has it done for your career? Like how is it, that experience, did it modify or adjust the way that you lead Pavilion? Are there lessons that you learned from there you could just bestow to others? I'd be curious on that as well.
Sure. A couple, right? So, and this was also my first. This was my first big lesson in marketing, and the first thing I learned, if you read my stuff, you know that I say first product, then marketing, then sales. And I mean, in terms of centers of excellence, it doesn't mean, hire your first salesperson last, but it means first have a great product, then figure out how to get a meeting, and then figure out how to convert that meeting into money. And marketing, which is a way of saying the process of taking customer enthusiasm and projecting it out into the universe, which is one way of describing marketing, is a more important skill to develop wherever it sits, whether it sits in sales or not, than the process of like running a good disco call. Like, no offense to all of us as salespeople, and I'm a salesperson, but running a good disco call is not harder. It's much, much easier. If we all get on 10 calls, me and Morgan will close 4 of them, I'll close 2 of them, and everybody else will close 3 of them. But we'll all close something if we get 10 bites at the apple of a good ICP that's ready to do something with us. But getting those 10 calls is much, much harder. So at Livestream, I started to invest in marketing after I hired a bunch more salespeople, which I hadn't shown an ability to generate more demand. So I added P&L, like I added expense by adding salespeople without changing demand, because, by the way, they weren't leads that they were talking to. They were just like random people. And then the first person I hired in marketing was a head of demand gen. And that was a huge mistake because demand gen is the act of... here's how I think about it. Demand gen's FedEx, right? Demand gen delivers a package, and the package is a message. And the package is delivered to the right person at the right time with the right message, and demand gen is the box that is contained in. But demand gen doesn't make the message, and demand gen doesn't figure out who the person is, and demand gen, maybe they help figure out the right time, but maybe not. And that was, so what does that mean? I hired a demand gen person, and she said, hey, what campaigns do you want me to run? And I said, I don't know, ones that get us leads. And so she wrote some really crappy ad copy and started posting them on Google.
Let's see what happens.
And it didn't work very well. And that's because the act of marketing is first figuring out who you are, what you stand for, what your message is, who you're against, who you're not against. That, and then distributing that idea into messaging and product marketing so that like your website, your brand, like you all know what the hell you're talking about, why you exist, how you're different from competitors. And then you hire demand gen to start getting meetings with that message in mind, with that ICP in mind. But reversing the order, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. Like I just find myself advising founders all the time right now and other people. Everybody wants to like, okay, and this is, another message. Next year looks better than this year, right? And 2023 sucked, and 2024 has been good, and Morgan's had a good year at AMP Creative, and I've had a good year at Pavilion. And the danger now is like, okay, we're going to triple next year. Like, don't do that. Let's keep putting the pieces in place so that we can have a great year. Like, our explosive year is going to be in 2026, not 2025. And my point is like everybody wants to skip steps and like, okay, how do I triple, twice, double, three times? How do I make all the money now? And unfortunately, most of the time the answer is you don't. You have to slow down and build it in the right order, because if you don't, you're just running backwards and fixing stuff along the way.
I hope everyone takes exactly what you said, and as we're recording this will be released around the time where people are going to be planning going into 2025, is what are the foundational blocks? I had a conversation with my team about that, saying, okay, like this is like Legos right now. It's like step one, like let's build this, right? And I think also, as well as probably leaders and founders, like I definitely skip my skis sometimes and I'm in like 2027. But then I also have to realize, like, in order to get there, you have to build this foundation, because people will appreciate the foundation, people appreciate the process, and that's the key. It's exactly what you're talking about.
And you need to, like, it's okay if you see, it's the tortoise and the hare, It's slow and steady wins the race. It's like you see this person running, zipping by you, and you're like, what am I doing wrong? I'm a loser. It's like, play your game and just do it. The next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and you will see that you will like steady, and everybody's like, how'd you get there? It's like, I've been working on this. We had a plan in place years ago, and it's what Jeff Bezos said. The results of this quarter were formed 2 and 3 years ago, and that we're working on Bezos is working on, well, he's not at Amazon anymore, but he's still the executive chairman or whatever. He's working on, him and Andy and all these people are working on 2026, 2027. That's where all of us have to be.
Yeah, I love that. And as we wrap up, any lasting piece of advice you want to give to anyone out here, and any shout outs you want to give before we go?
Well, I'll give a shout out to you, Morgan. It's been great to partner with you this year. Your team, including Stuart Mullins and Stefano, and there's another guy. I always forget his name. He's tall. He's got glasses. He helps out.
Garrett. Yeah. Shout out to G.
Exactly. That guy's nice too. But anyway, so those are some shout outs. Definitely give a shout out to my team, especially my executive team, Carly Pallas and Kathleen Booth and Tom Andrews and Nick Tarnoff, who formed the Pavilion executive team. And what was the other question you had?
Any last advice you want to give to anybody?
My advice to everybody out there is what I just said. There's 3 core principles behind Pavilion. Build relationships, not transactions. Look to offer and give assistance, give to get before you ask for assistance. And the most important one to me, the advice I would give you, is play a big, long game, not a short, small game. And a big, long game means take a long-term view, build relationships. The kid that doesn't need to eat the donut when he thinks nobody's looking. Like, don't need everything right now. Take a long-term view of your life, and watch the dividends. Make investments in the bank of karma. That's what I say.
We'll end on that note, and thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you all in the next episode. My hope is that you took as much notes on this episode as I did. And these are the three main things that I got out of it. Number one is when you are going through obstacles, continuously A/B test and try new things to figure out what it is. Just like he talked about Chef Sam, which is hilarious. That's what you sometimes have to do. You have to cook in multiple different ways and angles in order to truly be successful in the route that you're in. So that's number one. Number two thing that I learned is that as you're going through a hard time, understand how to navigate relationships and conversations throughout the organization. Look, at the end of the day, there are going to be so many different things that are going to be going on, and you don't want the leaders to mess you up at the end of the day. So having those conversations is the most important. And the third thing I learned is that even when you're going through adversity and obstacles, like we've heard on the other episodes, this is an opportunity for growth for your future self. So don't throw yourself a pity party. Don't be too stressed about it. Try to figure out what you're learning in that process so you can go and be